One of the things that people often get confused about, particularly when they do polling, as I call it, so they're talking to their aunts and uncles and cousins and brothers and sisters that live in other states and get all kinds of advice that's not based on Texas law, it's based on wherever they are. And while there is a commonality between divorce laws in almost all of our states, there are some things that are unique or that are available in Texas that may or may not be available in the state of the person who's trying to give you advice. Texas is a no-fault state. So you don't have to prove that the other person did something horrible to you. Probably most of the divorces are granted on no fault, and if the court hears the case, they can decide it's no fault even if you proved some fault, such as cruelty or adultery or those issues. The judge has the discretion to grant the divorce based on no fault. In Texas, we call it irreconcilable differences, which basically means you can't get along. In Texas, we have a relatively short waiting period. You can get divorced if you've agreed to everything and have all the paperwork filled out, technically within 60 days after the petition is filed. I say that hesitantly because most people can't do it because they can't get in front of the judge that quickly, or they can't get all the loose ends tied up. But technically the requirement is not a year like it was in Virginia where I practiced. It's 60 days. So you can get up one morning and not like the way your spouse brushes their teeth and file for divorce and be divorced in a couple of months if you work everything else out. And that's kind of unique to Texas because a lot of places do have a longer waiting period. There is no such thing as a separation that is, or a separation is not legally recognized as a status. People say, well, I'm separated, but that may mean you're living together. It may mean you're living in different parts of the house. It doesn't, it's not a term of art that means something specifically in Texas. There are states that have a legal status as separated, but Texas is not one of those. People can divvy up their stuff and do an agreement. In Texas, we call it an agreement incident to divorce that really settles all of your stuff without getting divorced. And sometimes people will do that for religious reasons, or perhaps a spouse has a medical condition that would be impossible for them to get insurance on their own, and so they divide up their stuff and have a document that's enforceable about how the division of their assets and debts, but they don't get divorced because of this other issue. So that's a difference. You have to notify the other person. We talked in some other tapes about giving notice, but you've got to notify the other person that you're intending to have a hearing. They can waive not only being served, but I know I'm getting divorced, I don't care, do what you want to do, I'm out of here. That's not advisable. Nobody's going to tell you to do that because you want to know what you've been responsible for, and if you don't show up, you can't keep someone from getting divorced. You can make it longer, you can make it harder, you can make it more expensive, but ultimately the other side can get divorced. So if you're on the side that doesn't want the divorce, you need to know that you're not going to be able to stop it, and really have a heart-to-heart conversation with an attorney about what you can do that is productive instead of just vengeful. If it's vengeful, then likely it's not going to help you help the other side, or get you further down the road to whatever the next phase of your life is going to be. Divorce allows you to get in each other's stuff. There's a process called discovery, which allows you to send questions to the other side that have to be answered under oath. There are limitations depending on the size of the estate. I'm not going to get into those details, but people are often surprised. What do you mean? You can ask for my bank statements, my credit cards, I can ask for your check stubs, I can ask for your income tax returns if you didn't file jointly. I can ask for your business records. I can ask for your accounts, all your accounts. I can look at all your stuff and you can look at all of mine. So oftentimes people are surprised about that. Well, they won't get me that. Well, a court will make them give it to you if it's available and necessary for the hearing. And sometimes that people feel like it's harassment, but the laws are very broad about what's available to discover, because you don't know what you don't know without asking for all those documents. So you may find some things that lead you on a trail that you don't know about. There's some jurisdictional requirements that basically say you got to have lived in Texas for 6 months and lived in the county for 90 days filing. That's what Texas requires. Yes, there are people who run off to Las Vegas or Jamaica or someplace and get divorced, and whether Texas will honor those divorces and what those divorces can divvy up. Maybe they can end the marriage, but they don't get to decide on children issues or property that's owned in the state of Texas, or whether spousal support is paid. So you might be able to get a divorce that has to be recognized by the state of Texas as the marriage ending, but that's pretty much the limits of what that divorce is. And as we've already discussed, there are many other issues that will have to be resolved that another court would not have jurisdiction to resolve.